All right, today we're going to take a look at prepping your metal for jig and fixturing, or making some sort of 90-degree angle if you're going to make like a table or a bench or some sort of nightstand or something that you want vertical and plumb that is also going to be 90 degrees to the tabletop or the flat surface on top. This is a rolly cart with a tabletop on there, and all these angles are at a perfect 90 degree. And so I'm going to show you how you can do that. Take a look up top here. We've got two pieces of angle iron, or I'm sorry, 1 inch, or no, this is what, three-quarter square tubing, and we're using the table to help kind of guide us as it's for a 90 degree. And then also to double check that it's 90 degrees, we're using this square here. We have lots of squares that you can use. Here's a 90 degree square here. This one is an aluminum triangle. And I just want to point out that when you're using one of these, yes, this would work. However, the longer these are, the more accurate that 90 degree inside corner is going to be. So if you're making something, if you're pouring concrete, let's say, the longer that triangle is, that square, that 90 degree, the more accurate that is going to be. If I'm squaring up a building to this, I have a lot of deflection that can happen, and I can get a lot of error. So it's always good to double check. We take our square here and put that in the corner, and we can see that all along this edge and all along that edge, we're tight against the metal. And then in 4 spots, we've clamped the material onto the table so that it doesn't move. And we've also prepped the metal and sanded the mill scale away on both pieces so that we get a good weld on there. Other things we could use are these magnetic triangles here. Problem with these is they get a lot of gunk on them, and that can interfere with how flush that your metal or your material sits on these triangles. But they are a good aid for helping you get set up. The last thing I'm going to mention here before we do a tack weld is the importance of tack welding. If I tack weld these in multiple spots, I take it out and I double check it, and it shows that, oh, this is not square. It's 88 degrees. Well, a tack weld, I can grind off and re-weld that quickly, whereas if I burn it all the way in, I'm kind of committed at that point. So, got the machine here, turn this on, and we'll just do a couple tack welds. So I've got multiple tack welds on there that are actually going to hold that. I started down low, went up high, was up high, and went down low. So this is a pretty good tack weld. Now I'm going to take off 2 clamps and just double check that this is in fact square. And if I were to have welded on the inside part of that 90 degree corner there, that weld would interfere with where the actual square attaches to the material. So that'd be difficult. So you have to do a little bit of planning when you're putting your tack welds in so that they're not going to interfere with your measurement. All right, so I'm going to do a vertical part here, and we have this this jig here. It's 2 squares, and they're welded together, and it shows us 3 axes. It shows us the X axis, the Y axis, and then the Z axis, which is your depth. And I'm going to take another piece here of this 3/4 material that is prepped already from getting rid of the mill scale, and I'm going to put that in that corner right in there. And I'm also going to use my square again to make sure that I have another 90 degree corner right there. And I'm going to utilize this same corner here so that that I can get my clamps on there and clamp this together.
And the table acts as a square here, it's helping out a ton, and this jig is going to help us with a guide for vertical.
So this is clamped to the table. Now I can take and move everything else up against it so that I know I'm square. Missing one?
There you go, little guy.
Lastly, I'm going to take and clamp this 3/4 inch onto here so that I know I'm at 90 degrees, because while this may look like it's plumb, if my table is not totally flat, I could be welding that on there at a weird angle. So there we go. I'm looking down in here to double check that I've got this blue and this green plane, that they're flush against the material so I don't have anything sticking out. Kind of hard to see, but I'm looking right down in there where I just pointed. And I'm looking at this 90-degree relationship there. So I have this at a 90, and I have my Y and X axis at a 90, and my Z axis is 90 to that. So this is going to be pretty good. Now the problem with this is I can only put in a couple tack welds here. One down in the base here, I'll point with my pen. 1, 2, and 3 right up in here. And I want to be careful that I don't weld my material to my jig. All right, I'm all set up. My nozzle's pretty clean, so I'm ready to go.
Ground clamp.
Now I'm going to take all this off and double check it. All right, so I know that that is in fact at 90, that's good. I'm going to check this for 90. See that okay?
Yeah.
And then this piece here at 90. Everything's good. Perfect. There. Is that bottom edge all right?
Yeah.
All right, now this is pretty well tacked in here, but the one thing I'm going to want to do to make sure that my actual welding doesn't warp it is I want to take this and clamp this back down onto the table when I burn that in. I might not have to have the squares clamped onto there, but I want to clamp this back down. The error would be thinking, oh, it's fine, and just weld that in right there. We don't want to do that at that point, because so the heat will definitely, on something longer, will cause it to bend a little bit. So yeah, I would just continue welding that, and then on outside edges, like right here, I would grind that flush. Same thing over here. I wouldn't have to necessarily on the inside corners because they're not going to interfere with anything. Well, probably not based on my design plans, but that's how I would finish that up. And then of course take my clamps and tighten them together so there's just a little bit of resistance on the lever, and then hang those back up in the cabinet by their friends.